Hey guys, what's up? It's Brandon here with Investment Joy. I am in the post office again. Quite a few of you have asked me, what's going on with the post office? What happened? Great news, guys. After shooting this video, I kid you not, we found there's a hidden staircase and room in this building. We will be back Monday to tear down the wall, record it, and see what's in the hidden room and staircase. And I guess I wasn't really sufficient at explaining it that I've owned this place for 4 years. Did you guys get that out of the last video? I'm sitting in the one unit we just got done. It was rented prior for $500 a month, and the renovations are essentially done on this one. We got all the painting done. They've redone the trim. They've cleaned up the trim on a lot of the old woodwork in here. I know we've committed the cardinal sin of painting old woodwork. It's just not economically feasible at this time to keep the original trim as original, so we've gone and we've tried to paint it in the hope that it's going to be preserved well enough for future generations, maybe to sand it down whenever they have the whole chance. But as I look around in this unit, I mean, it's just amazing to me how much quality is put in the woodwork. We've got these big, giant bookcases and things like that. But out of that last video, what was so interesting to me is I had two separate people that I had no clue that actually told me the story about this post office well after the time that it was a post office. In fact, one of my tenants on another property that I own, they contacted me and reminded me that prior to them taking in veterans here, they actually ran a women's shelter here back in the 90s, early 2000s, which it was interesting to me. It added to the story of this place. But this unit's done. We're going to appreciate the rent. It's going from $500 a month to $575. We're starting to see that inflation creep up, as well as rental prices in this area, but it's pretty good. They're working on the next unit. They have found all sorts of really interesting, fun things in there, all sorts of neat little things in the unit on discovery now that they're in there cleaning it out. And it's just one of the interesting things that when you clean out a rental property or a rental unit, you discover all sorts of neat things. But that one also is going to see a rent increase. This whole facility probably on the turnovers are going to generate another $250 per month. That's $3,000 a year extra it's going to make on this place. And I don't know if we got the numbers right last time, but I only have like $125,000 in this whole place, which is really cool to buy a historic post office. So hearing all these stories about this place is always interesting to me, but even more than the stories, or I may be equal, are the economics of the situation that a person like me could buy a $125,000 historic post office and mostly fix it up. But like everything else, I do it on a shoestring budget, which is, one of those interesting things. Out of that video, I had several people in the area contact me and say, oh, you're doing a great job. I had several people say, oh, you're doing a terrible job. But as time goes on, my goal is to make this place better and better. One of the weird things that happens in these kinds of areas is like gentrification as well as reverse gentrification. This area is getting nicer. It's also pricing a lot of people out of the market. And then those kinds of market economic factors move somewhere else. Over on the east side of town, we're on 2nd Street here, but on the east end of town over on 2nd Street, we end up in the reverse situation. I don't know, reverse gentrification or what, but years ago I did a story about buying an old train station. At some point we'll do videos there, but it's just, that place stays occupied 24/7. I never have vacancies over there. If you remember, I have a fiveplex, a big brick fiveplex over there. It stays rented most of the time too, but my train station's always full of people as far as tenants go. But driving over on that side of the street, the number of abandoned and destroyed houses is absolutely shocking. This has always been a pretty decent neighborhood. Over on the east end, that was one of the best parts of town. That's where, when the B&O Railroad came through southern Ohio, it was one of the stops here in town, and they made so much money. My brick fiveplex is actually the guy that managed the train network. That was his house. Then the little brick houses, and I'll post those videos in the description below or pin the comments or something to those different houses, and I'll also include a little bit of the history. That whole part of town was built solely for the desire or the use of the train system here in southern Ohio. Yet once the train system relocated their base of operations. CSX Transportation bought out B&O Railroad back in the 30s, 40s or so, I think it was. They moved their base of operations somewhere other than Southern Ohio, and no one came to the rescue of the east end of town. And most of those buildings just kind of depreciated and dilapidated. And if it wasn't for investors coming in to try and buy those properties and fix them up, that whole part of the East End would have just been even worse. I'm not saying it's good right now. It certainly has huge issues, but it could have been worse if it wasn't for investors, which is interesting to me because, you know, the takeaway for this YouTube channel, I think, is that if I can do it, anybody else can do it. But then I'm hopefully also showing you guys, why do I do the things that I do? Why am I sitting on a windowsill here that's painted rather than sanded? Well, if I was to sand it, it would cost me probably $250. Or we could paint it and I could do it for $50. That makes more financial sense. Why do we have single pane vinyl windows here as opposed to double pane vinyl windows? Well, that's an extra $100. Why did we not sand all the woodwork down in this specific unit? Well, that'd be an extra $10,000 to $15,000. Could I get the money? Sure. Can I recoup the money fast enough? Well, it would tack on an extra $150 in my opinion. And I don't know that it's worth it. There's other investors in this part of town that feel that it's worth it, and they have made the choice to invest that money in the market, which I think is interesting. So real estate's this fun game that virtually anybody can play if you put the effort into it. As I said in my other videos, I'm in contract to buy a really cool business opportunity here in Southern Ohio. We're set to close on it February the 1st, so there will be a long, wonderful YouTube series on that business purchase. We're documenting everything along the way. It's really cool, but in that purchase, I bought the business for less than $7,000. And it will be just a totally wild story. It'll be the first purchase that I've ever done, and I'm documenting it from day one through whatever on YouTube, as opposed to this post office that I bought in 2016. Here we are now in 2021. I guess that's 5 years ago. So 5 years later, and I'm just kind of coming in, documenting the empty units as we find treasures and precious gifts and interesting little things inside these units. So make sure that you like and subscribe and all that stuff. You follow around with me on my Southern Ohio adventures as I try and clean up things in town and try to invest money and things like that. We've already brought over like 1.5 million in investment to this area, which is cool. And it's growing up poor and evicted twice. That's pretty cool, I think. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate every one of you, and watch those other videos. I'll put the description about the engineering houses, the conductors' houses, or the train operators' houses. I don't have any videos yet on the old hotel. The hotel will probably be bulldozed. Unfortunately, it's kind of like full of spoonies and people of the rock. They've stripped out everything worthwhile, including the electric on there. Thanks for watching, guys.